Hey everybody, how are you today? Want to make sure you can see my screen okay? Can you see our presentation, Tom? I'm going to assume that means yes.
Looks
Cool.
good on this side. How are you this morning, Pam?
Awesome. I am fine. I am a cup and a half in. Um, and oh, you actually got coffee in your
I
coffee
did.
cup.
I fixed my coffee maker while,
Fabulous.
in the 5 minutes I had between jumping out of my last and into this. So I have
Awesome.
fresh coffee. We're ready to roll. We got some good stuff to
Great.
talk
Joel's got the big cup going, so we're good. We're good. We should
Moved to the Coke
today should
Zero
be a great
already.
about. You've switched to the Coke Zero already? Yeah,
Well,
it
that's
is 11
my
o'clock.
post 10 o'clock drink.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay, so welcome to Jump Cloud's Ask Me Anything. I think this is the first Ask Me Anything we've ever done. So it should be an awful lot of fun. We're expecting you folks out there to put questions into the chat, into the question section on the chat, and we will get to them throughout the webinar. Um, these are these folks here today. We've got Joel Renick, who is the head of device identity, and Tom Bridge, principal product manager at. See, it looks like you're the principal product manager at Apple, but we know that's not true.
So actually, it's a little different now. I'm the director of product for devices management. So the team is I handle all of our platforms now.
Well, fabulous. Congrats. Lucky you.
Thank you.
Yes. And I am an IT columnist here on the content team at JumpCloud. And we're going to jump right in with what we're itching to know. So, how was your weekend, guys?
Well, it
Anything
was
interesting happen?
well, the deferral ran out on my on one of my test systems. Obviously we hit just January 22nd was the last day. That was day 90 after October 24th, which was the release of macOS Ventura, and that is as far as you can go. In terms of of delaying macOS Ventura on your fleet. As starting as of Sunday, it will be advertised to end users. In certain circumstances, a little bit later this spring, those standard users will be able to update on their very own without your permission as an admin, which is a new and different process for us all. And so, yeah, I was going to say it's definitely a little bit confused, but certainly a great way to get started. So I feel like we can ask all sorts of questions about how that works.
We can
I,
certainly ask why the software update is such a challenge.
I saw that Greg Nagel had put together a flow chart as to all the potential possibilities that you might encounter. Depending on how software update hit the Apple servers at the time, are you going to get a full installer, which requires admin credentials? Are you going to get just the diff, which doesn't require admin credentials? And then some of that, I guess, is keyed on the actual look of the icon in software update.
That's
As
right.
to whether you're
No
getting a full
way.
one or not.
That's
Little
right.
things I have not. I let Tom mess with the software update portions lately, so I've not gotten into too much depth with it. But it's a pretty extensive flow chart as to all the permutations of the process, which of course makes it more complicated to tell your users how to actually do this and what to expect as they go through it.
So Joel, do you have, if you have that link handy, that
Yeah,
might be a
yep.
valuable one to put into the chat.
Put it out on Mastodon, but I think he also had it on Twitter too.
Okay, cool.
Let's give out the Mastodon link because that's the new hotness, right?
That's
Like I
why I
feel
went
like,
there first.
yep. And I was going to say our friends at the Bird site have definitely had a rough time, but I'm very interested in the new hotness that is Mastodon. So
Yeah, did you see that Chatbots put out their
Ivory is awesome.
Ivory
I
is
was going to
awesome?
say Ivory is out there. I smashed the button that said subscribe now. So
Seconds.
yeah, moments
Moments,
moments
yes.
after install. And
Heck
there
yes.
for family users, that is a license that shares over your family sharing subscription as well. So only one person in your household needs to buy it.
Yeah. It's
So
nice to support folks who couldn't be supported.
we did get a question in the initial spot while Joel finds that link. So we got the question, what is your favorite brand of coffee? Well, I like Zeke's.
Look, he has
This
the
is
bag.
my local roastery. It is 4 blocks from the house. Zeke's, I'm drinking the Guatemala today. It is their Huehue Tenango. It is a washed process coffee. It is a bourbon and Caturra cultivar. The tasting notes suggest fudge, orange, and walnut. It is very tasty. It is my favorite.
Wow. That was a lot, Tom.
Yes, I try to be a
Joel,
lot.
you're looking at what, like Folgers?
No, not at all. I mean, this is a 2023 Coke Zero straight from the bottling plant. But
An excellent.
I think this morning
Good
was a
picture.
Major Dickinson blend. I get whatever whole bean is reasonably on sale at Target or whatever grocery store I go to,
Nice.
and then put it in the machine.
Nice.
And it does the rest.
Mine's a fresh ground bean from a local roaster here, and I think it's a Costa Rican today. Some days it's a Harar, which is what I prefer.
Nice.
So yeah. So we have another question here. How do you block an Apple ID sign-in on Mac OS? Shadow IT.
Well, I mean, and that really gets down to the place where you don't have control over whether or not they sign in with an Apple ID. You have control of what that Apple ID can do once it is signed in. You can turn off services like, the FaceTime and iMessage. You can turn off, services like cloud photos and cloud sharing and, other things along those lines. Those are all things that you can do. You can restrict their ability to store their desktop and their documents folder in the cloud, which I think is a wise choice for, everyone there. I think that as we, look at the future here, I think that Apple really wants you to sign in with an Apple ID because it enables a lot of things. You can encourage folks to use managed Apple IDs, which have very limited abilities, but still, offer things like Freeform and the ability to do some of the, the new cloud services that are available there. But managed Apple IDs are their own boat, right, Joel? There, you get a little bit of a different experience with a managed Apple ID.
Absolutely, and we've played around with a little bit of this, because we're kind of, obviously, and one of the reasons why we do these sessions is we're interested in knowing what people want to use and kind of what directions they're going with their organizations and the IT choices that they're making. And managed Apple IDs have some pretty cool functionality to them, where we've been, kind of a little bit down on them recently. Passkeys. Passkeys really cool. Some really cool stuff that's going on there. I use passkeys now with my Jump Cloud authentication. Makes it stupid easy, especially when I'm signing in with my on a PC, because I've been doing some Windows MDM work. And so being able to just shoot a QR code with my phone, I never thought I'd be excited about QR codes.
Right?
But it really works well in this case, where I can shoot that QR code with my phone, sign into Jump Cloud on the PC, which I'm tearing up and down all the time. So I don't want to really get like a lived-in profile and be able to sign in. But none of those work with a managed Apple ID.
Right.
Because you don't get the iCloud keychain. And if you don't have an iCloud keychain, you can't use passkeys, at least through Apple facilities. You can still use them with Chrome and things like that through your Google accounts. And I guess the big piece there is, as Tom mentioned, you can kind of block a lot of stuff. And Apple ID won't sign you into the device, right? So you're still having to sign into an account through Jump Cloud or whatever local account if you're not using us for that. So yeah, it obviously you want to lock that down, but at least they're getting into their system with an account that you're understanding of or aware of how to deal with in most cases. And then, managed Apple IDs, I think, Tom, you and I started talking about them mostly because of the volume purchase aspects, which is a little more maybe relevant to iOS.
Sure.
It exists on the Mac. I don't know how many people are pushing VPP software for Mac things. I know for a
I
while.
would say a fair number, but we end up using device licensing as opposed to Apple licensing or Apple ID licensing
Sure.
in those cases.
Well, and a lot of the stuff on the Mac, I think, is more of the free apps, right?
Yes.
I've been using Xcode from the App Store for a while, right? Because then it just automatically updates. And in most cases, that's it updates when you want it and how you'd want it, and then you don't have to worry about manually going out and downloading big 12 gig binaries. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have a lot of paid software through the App Store on my Mac. Certainly, I have more of that on the iOS side.
For sure. So yeah,
Cool.
coming back to the original question, you really can't block their ability to sign in with an Apple ID. And I think that Apple is very clear about this. They want people to use Apple IDs. Now, as IT, you have the ability to essentially encourage people and by policy require. And I'm talking here about HR policy, not like paper
APs.
policy, as opposed to an authenticated process. Obviously, if you want to basically say, hey, look, this is an MDM managed machine that was enrolled with Apple Business Manager and automated device enrollment, it should only be signed into with a managed Apple ID. That would be an enhancement that I would strongly encourage folks to file feedback requests for, so that you can essentially say, hey, look, managed Apple IDs only. And that's not something that's part of the MDM specification today, but maybe should be.
Mhm. So they have to pay attention to AUPs. Employers have to write proper, complete AUPs in order to take care of this problem. It's not a problem, but it's a concern.
That's right.
Cool.
We had another good question right below that.
Yeah. It keeps scrolling. Hang on. Sorry, technology. Dang. Someone here wants to know if and how can I create a security profile for application and push it through JumpCloud like Global Protect?
Right. Global Protect's a great piece of software, has some system extensions, of course. So that means you usually need, an app privacy policy to go with that and a system extension policy. We have, policy pre-built for both app privacy policies, which are, traditionally the privacy preferences policy control. So full disk access and, individual network access and accessibility access, things along those lines. Those are a checkbox policy that you can use directly out of our policy management suite. In addition, you can set up a system extensions policy for that. And you'll need to deliver both of those to the device, one for privacy preferences and the other for system extension. There are some code blocks that you'll need to provide that Global Protect should be able to give you easily, or you should be able to get on disk from an individual device. Code sign space -dr space, path to application is another great way of getting that information. It's got some code blocks that you need to do there. We've got a full KBase article on creating app privacy policies and system extensions policies. I'll see if we can dig those up and drop those links in the chat here.
Great, thanks. So here's another question about Apple Business Manager, Apple Business Essentials, managed Apple IDs, and how are folks using those? But I think we probably dealt with all this. How are they using managed Apple IDs in an environment? It's a long question. Where people are using devices for. Sorry,
Pam, my bad. I hit return on finding one of those links.
We are practiced here. Where people are using devices for both business and personal. Mac OS features are not available when using managed Apple IDs. Things such as iCloud Sync, iCloud Keychain Sync, iMessage Sync, the usual.
Yeah,
and a lot of those don't happen, right, with the managed Apple IDs.
That's exactly right. And because they don't support a managed iCloud Keychain yet, and we keep encouraging our colleagues at Apple to support a feature of that, a feature related to that, because there are some things that need to get pushed out there in terms of updates. So, I think the other piece of this is, we have to start thinking, if we can limit what an Apple ID can do on a device, which is to say, don't store my desktop and documents in the cloud, don't sync those things currently, and don't allow iCloud Drive on those systems,
Right.
What's the risk that you have of allowing a user to use their personal, iCloud, account on your corporate device? And I think that that's the kind of question that you've got to start asking yourself is, hey, I
Right.
really want continuity. I really want handoff. I really want, the continuity camera, for example, because, here at JumpCloud, I have to use a managed Apple ID with my work computer, which I'm talking to you on now, which means this is my personal phone. I can't use the
Right.
continuity camera with this setup here. So you get to see my my webcam and my studio display instead. So some of it is trade-offs and being aware that trade-offs exist there.
You missed us
And
playing
so
with continuity camera before the webcast started.
Oh,
Freaking
he
Pam
just gave
Al
me
was
a
little too close
headache.
to my face.
too
Yeah,
much Zoom.
I be watching you. He did one of those. Yeah. It's always great to do
Well, I
grown-up
think it may be
behaviors with children.
interesting. Can we do a poll on who's using managed Apple IDs and maybe who's
Oh,
Yeah.
interested in using managed Apple IDs?
Sure. Hey, Dakota, can you put up a poll about managed Apple IDs?
yeah, that's a great question. I think it's really just a yes, no. Are you using managed Apple IDs in your environment today?
Yeah. Let us know when that's ready to go. That's awesome.
So it'll take a minute to do that. So we'll jump into the next
We'll
question first.
take another. Are there any plans to allow creation of device or user groups based on criteria such as operating system version installed or the existence of a file on the endpoint that is
So
dynamic groups?
dynamic groups are a big focus for us right now as we go into the first quarter here. You've already seen that we have some group suggestions around user-based groups, and so if you want to group your users together based on key items there, that's in early access right now. We're hard at work on pivoting that to devices. I think it's more likely that you'll initially be able to set up a operating system version group. So show me all my Macs that are running macOS 13 so that I can apply login items policies to them. Show me all of my macOS 12 devices so that I can push a patch management policy that upgrades them to the latest version of macOS, the macOS 13. And so look for those things here in hopefully by the end of the first quarter. Obviously, dates are not announced for that. I think that that's certainly an area of focus for us right now. But I'm not going to commit to, hey, that's going to happen March 13th. I do know that that's a huge focus for us right now. And we have teams from our cloud directory group and our devices engineering groups working on that right now to pivot those devices into new group arrangements based on the search criteria that you want to establish. We're also hard at work on new search and filter criteria because we know that if you've got 1,000 devices in your JumpCloud, finding the right set of devices or finding the specific set of devices can be a challenge. We want that to be a better experience for you. And so, we're hard at work on figuring out what the user experience is going to be for those things today.
Perfect, thanks. So how can I enroll my old Mac devices in Apple Business Manager?
Oh, that's a fun one. You need one of these. You need a
You
phone.
need an iPhone.
You need an iPhone. It has to be an iPhone. Can't be an Android phone. Can't be an iPad. It has to be an iPhone for reasons.
Yeah, I haven't tried it with an iPad.
Doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
I have tried that. The app does not download to the device. It is scoped only to iOS. Will not run on iPadOS. It requires an Apple Business Manager account, an Apple Business Manager managed Apple ID with device manager privileges. And it also requires you to wipe the device at play. What happens?
That's good.
The macOS device, because you can only go through to get a device enrolled into Apple Business Manager from the Setup Assistant and from a specific screen on the Setup Assistant. I'll find the Apple documentation for iOS or configurator for iOS on how you do this, but it's a 3-step process. Wipe the device, set up configurator for iOS, and during Setup Assistant, at a specific screen, you will take your phone out, open up the configurator for iOS. It's going to give you a camera view because it uses the camera here. The display of the macOS device goes into that swirling dot array like you'd get on the Apple
much.
Watch during setup. And you scan the swirling dot array, and it automatically manages the device. On Apple Silicon devices, you then have to proceed through automated device enrollment. And that means assigning the device in your Apple Business Manager to your JumpCloud MDM or to your other MDM, whichever MDM you're using. That's going to give you that experience. You'll be able to enroll those devices, much like iOS devices that are enrolled in Apple Business Manager through this means. There's a 30-day removable period. So any macOS device that has never been through this process before, the MDM enrollment profile is provisional and can be removed by any admin user on the device for the first 30 days. After 30 days, that enrollment hardens and it's now an Apple Business Manager device. So.
Wow. Could you repeat that process?
Sure. Happy to. It's not straightforward, right? Like, I mean, it's very clear. You got
fun.
Yeah.
If you have nothing better to do with your week, this is fun.
I mean,
My
honestly,
Apple stock thanks you for making sure you buy an iPhone just to visually enroll your Macs.
That's right. You need an iPhone. So you got to get an iPhone. You got to sign into a configurator for iOS with a managed Apple ID that has device manager permissions.
Okay.
And it's got to be a 14 Max Pro. That's a joke. That's a joke. But if you're gonna submit for an iPhone just so you can enroll devices, I mean, you want the camera to be good, little
That's
zoom
right.
there.
Very important.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be that close to the screen.
Absolutely.
And you actually have to boot up that Mac, right? Because it has to have a monitor attached to it. Because
Yes,
it does
correct.
a little
Wait,
swirly,
Oh,
funny QR code, like when you're pairing a watch, right?
That's right.
It's really beautiful looking, but it's a combination of that and Bluetooth that's used to validate you're actually in front of that device and you've got physical connection to it.
That's correct.
as big of a pain as that sounds, that is so cool.
Mm-hmm. Right?
It's such.
I mean, you know that they thought about this and they were like, how do we make sure that dot grid, you know, the swirling dots. I think that there's a formal name for that for that experience. I'm not sure what
it's not swirly.
the swirly dots. I mean that's what I call them. But you scan the swirly dots during Setup Assistant, and again, you have to have wiped that Mac. It has to be at Setup Assistant, which is inconvenient. Don't get me wrong. But you wipe the device, you run it through Setup Assistant at a specific moment. It's the language picker on most machines. It's the language picker. So in the language picker screen, you hold your phone nearby the device. If it's with iOS Configure open, it does a special Bluetooth beacon that essentially says, hey, you, I know you're in setup mode. That's what causes the swirly dots to appear. And then you can scan the swirly dots. It joins the device to your Apple Business Manager environment. And that's when you can do the device assignment.
That's so cool. It's amazing. It really is. It's just amazing technology.
Yeah.
So we have a question that's off. That's we got before the webinar from someone who says, I'm a web developer who wears the IT hat in the office, about 70 employees. I'm sure there are things that I'm doing that are not fully optimal. Our new workstation workflow currently involves manually configuring a local admin account, installing the JumpCloud agent, installing required software, and finally associating a user and device group within JumpCloud. Some settings and software are automatically deployed. I'm interested to know more about zero-touch deployment and whether it would be possible within our environment. Go.
Okay. So we've made some changes to our commands product that I think are actually going to help you out a lot. Starting at the very end of the year, we announced the ability for you to create commands that are only run at enrollment on every device that enrolls in JumpCloud. And so that if you have software that's really not meant for installation through using the software management tool, and you really need to script it because it's got license keys or it's got other steps that you need to go through, or it's not in a package form, it's only in a zip, and so you need to write a command to actually do those installs. You can, at that point, create an enrollment command for devices, And then any device that comes through automated device enrollment can be joined to a specific group, which in turn receives software management items, so key pieces of software that are distributed in packages or distributed through Apple's volume purchase program. And then also you can create enrollment commands so that if, for example, you have CrowdStrike Falcon, which is my favorite example because they're a great JumpCloud partner, and it's really good software. It's really good security software that's not intrusive, that's not gross, and it definitely, doesn't have the huge kind of a performance impacts that some of the other security tools do. You can, at that point, deliver a command that installs Falcon on the system and provisions it to your environment using an API key. And so that command can be run on every Mac that enrolls in your environment. So you can pre-assign policies based on automated device enrollment groups. You can pre-assign users through the usage of the authenticated enrollment, so that any user that goes that gets that machine, if you unbox the laptop and join it to the network so that it gets its device management setup process, that's an authenticated process using JumpCloud IDs. So that I have to sign in with tbridge at jumpcloud.com, and then when you sign in with that spot, I have to use my JumpCloud credentials to get in. Otherwise, you don't go through that process. At the end of the process, I get a bound user, which is great for handling user-based tasks. I get all of the needed password syncing stuff handled in that same process. I get any enrollment commands that are assigned to my platform, and I get any group-based policies that are assigned to my automated device enrollment group, which means I can get my FileVault policy, and it's actually, that's the best way to get FileVault onto a machine, because it is provisioned and encrypted before the user even gets to their desktop. Because it's not optional, you have to get that done. It's a great time to get that done, so the user doesn't have to log out and log back in. So there are a lot of great ways to handle this. JumpCloud's got a lot of really great onboarding experiences as a result of these provisioning commands, as well as commands that can be assigned to the device.
That was awesome. Thank you, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Viewer asks, this person would like an overview of admin users on Mac OS and if it should have its own Apple ID. We have computers in multiple countries to make things more complex.
Oh boy, Apple IDs on global Apple IDs are an adventure, right? Like, I think that I would love to know a little bit more context. And if you're still with us, listener, I would love to know what kind of things you're doing with that admin user. I think that most of our environments are set up such that there isn't really a local admin user on the device, that we're, in a lot of cases, we're sending them to an end user that's an admin, at least temporarily. And, they're getting their software through our software management platform. And so there's really no need for an Apple ID on an individual, admin device. Obviously, Apple really discourages the use of like common Apple IDs, so that, you have one Apple ID that belongs to your local admin that accepts software licensing on behalf of the user. That's not a great way to go through life, especially when you've got multiple different corporate entities in multiple different countries. So I would love to have some conversations there. So that would be fantastic.
I do remember when I was at Apple and we had airlines using the Flightbag app, and it was only available in the US App Store. And the suggestion was that pilots go to the US Embassy in various foreign locations to
to be on US soil.
To be on US soil, because that way they could use the US App Store and their US Apple ID. It was kind of the reaction I think we got when we were discussing that with customers. So,
oh boy.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I don't know how many US embassies offer wireless. I mean, if they do, that's kind of cool. When you're hanging out in China, can you get on the get through the Great Firewall by walking near the US Embassy and catching a connection? I guess that's probably complicated.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So here's somebody who is using a different MDM and seeing problems with software update binary choking when the MDM asks the device what updates it has available. All MDM push commands fail until software update is killed. Has JumpCloud seen this issue? Our vendor is pointing the finger at Apple, as
You
one
bet.
does.
The answer is yes, we've absolutely seen that, and it became a little bit of a challenge during the most recent beta cycle. The most recent beta cycle, the 13.2 beta cycle, was one where Apple wanted us to test, hey, we're going to release a rapid security response update for 13.2 in the beta cycle. So if you're on 13.2 beta and we release an RSR update for that, 13.2a, can you install it with an MDM command? And the answer was absolutely not, because the device will essentially be told, hey, go check for updates and report back your available OS updates. And what would happen would be, as soon as the device started to check for available updates, it would crash software update. So we definitely submitted feedback to Apple that, hey, we were not able to successfully complete our plan because software update was crashing in the background. So we would like to see you test this again when you fix software update. And we certainly recognize that Apple's got a lot of challenges right now with the software update binary. If you are out there in the community right now and you happen to be a low-level operating systems expert, I did see a job posting at Apple on the software update binary team. You could be the hero we all need.
We may pass the hat, be able to sweeten whatever deal Apple can give you for the right person.
I promise you.
53,000 people last week. Somebody should be able to jump in there.
If you happen to be that person, I will say that the MacAdmins community will not let you pay for a drink in public ever again if you fix that.
For reals. Wait. Yeah.
So yeah, the software update binary right now is pretty fragile.
Yeah, so that's not to say there may be other issues, but 100%. Apple could be the root of the problem in that flow, as we've 100% seen that.
Yep. Do we want to throw up a poll about, speaking of, that folks using
We've
different
been told
MDMs?
We can't create polls on the fly.
We can't create them, but they exist.
We have a poll already there.
Oh, okay. A
Dakota,
poll from our magic bag of
awesome
pre-created polls.
Yeah, our awesome producer, Dakota, has some poll out there. I don't know what it is.
I was going to say, we talked about doing one on what MDM you're using today. And so, we know that you can use JumpCloud with other MDMs. Oh my. Okay, so that just took over the screen. That was great.
They won't let me answer.
Yeah, won't let me answer either.
I don't think we're entitled to that.
Attendees only.
Well, that's okay. We'll give it a little bit of time. $65% have voted. 65%. I have all my language skills. 70. %7% have voted. Keep going. 69% so far have said that they are using JumpCloud.
Hey, that's great.
It is great. 80% of you guys have voted already. Let's go, folks.
Let's give them another 15 seconds, but I don't think you folks are waiting that.
They stepped out to make another cup of coffee, I'm sure.
Indeed. This is why you need the desktop coffee maker.
That's exactly. Okay, poll closed. And there are our results. 69% of the folks out here are using JumpCloud, and then Jamf, and then other. At some point, we'll do another. We'll find out what those others are. Cool. Thanks for that, Dakota. So, hey, what about browser updates, guys?
Browser updates continue to be, something that every organization needs to have a plan for at a bare minimum. If you aren't planning on how you keep your Chromes up to date, you're probably leaving exposed one of the biggest surfaces that you have aside from your operating system. And so if you're not patching those browsers with regularity, or at least requiring your users to do that, one of the great things that I love about Safari is that it's updated when the operating system is. And so it's automatic. And so as long as software update is not taking a dirt nap, you get an updated version of Safari on the regular. Chrome has some controls that allow you that ability. And so the enterprise controls for Chrome can allow you to say, hey, look, I need you to do an update within a day or within 2 days or within 3 days of release. And now I get regularly bugged with the alert that says a little box that pops up here at JumpCloud that's like, hey, your Chrome has to update. You got 31 hours. And go do the needful and just click relaunch now. I love that. It's great. It saves my tabs where they're supposed to be. I don't have to worry about losing my progress.
Right.
I good to courtesy flush Chrome every so often anyway to reduce the RAM usage. So everybody
I don't know what you mean, Joel.
I may or may not have gotten the for the very first time recently. I may have gotten the you're running out of system memory. I only have 16 gigs on the M1 Pro here that I'm running, but Chrome was using all of it the other day.
Jeez. So. Yeah. How many? Okay. So how many windows and how many tabs?
Right now?
No, then.
I have 3 windows, and I think I only have about 20 tabs. So I'm not like a serial offender.
Amateur.
Yeah. When it happened, 6 or 8 windows, probably 100 tabs at least. I was doing some documentation updates, so I had our docs open. I had Apple developer docs open. It was a lot.
I can picture the screens. It must have been awesome.
Yep.
So here's somebody who says they're not a Mac OS expert. Users are reporting that changing the Wi-Fi network password requires them to forget the network, and that needs an admin password. Is this a real issue? And is there a workaround to change the Wi-Fi password without sudo? We looked at the airport app, which is what Apple suggested, but not much help.
I don't think Apple pointed you in the right direction in this case.
Yeah.
There are ways to specify a new password for Wi-Fi devices. We obviously support the ability for you to send a profile down to devices for macOS and for iOS with a new network name and a new password that will override whatever is stored locally. And so that is one way to handle that particular case. So I think that's one thing for us one thing to think about here. The other piece is that there is in your keychain oftentimes a Wi-Fi network password for any network that you have joined. That is, you, the user, have joined this network manually and typed in a manual password. You can remove that password at any time, or you can change the value that is stored there. That's in the keychain access application that's in the utilities folder. That's keyed off the local user's keychain. So, that is one option there for handling that kind of task. You could also choose at that point to remove the old network key and put in a new one. That won't work if the network was first joined by another user or if the network was first joined by a local admin account. So those keychains become part of the system keychain at that point, which the user who's not an admin will not have access to.
Right. Hey, Joel, can you explain what user MDM profile is and can do and how it differs in comparison with the device MDM profile?
Another fun story.
Channels.
Time
channels.
to get
We're
your
gonna just
coffee ready. And and this has been a challenge with the user MDM profile for actually quite a while. So prior to my life at JumpCloud, I was at other places doing other things and had a lot of frustrations with the user level MDM. All right. So first of all, user level MDM is the ability to apply profiles to users as opposed to entire devices. That distinction is a little blurry if you're not working in labs and you're mostly focused on laptops that only have a single account, right? At which point the concept of a user versus a device is a little bit tenuous. They're kind of one and the same. But user level, especially if you do have device or lab systems, is interesting in that you could have maybe an admin sign in and get slightly different settings than you would if you had an end user sign in. potentially maybe a VPN change, for example. So an admin would be able to use VPN connections that would not otherwise be available to a standard user. To be able to do this, it gets complicated because Apple and how the user channel MDM is set up. The first user installed on the system gets ability to use the user channel, at least from a technical perspective. Any subsequent user to use the user channel has to actually be a domain account that is coming in from an Active Directory plugin or an LDAP connection. So you have to be coming in as a mobile account into that device, which in the year of our Lord 2023 is maybe not in a very plausible flow here. So that's where the user channel has not necessarily been heavily utilized over recent memory. We'd love to do more with it because we're putting users on, but the way that JumpCloud actually creates the users pretty much negates any ability to use the user channel on that. Because again, you get back to it has to be the first user installed through the Mac Setup Assistant that be able to get this user channel magic, or somebody coming in through a mobile account. And all of those are kind of not very modern ways of managing systems and putting users on there. The flip side is a lot of people, well, at least a lot of the accounts that we had worked with in the past that were interested in a user channel, once we kind of got into what they were doing with it, why did they care? A lot of that seemed to fall by the wayside, and that most of it could actually be managed through normal profiles through the device. Now, there are some specific ones, specifically into if you wanted to issue a certificate through SCEP to an individual user and not have it show up in the system keychain that would have to require the user channel. And, you know, so for that, I'll hand it back over to Tom, who can clarify maybe what our thinking is on this going forward and where we're like next.
You know, right now we don't use the user channel in JumpCloud MDM. We are focused on device management. We believe that the user is largely managed through our JumpCloud processes. And, you know, we can certainly see a future where we want to use the MDM user channel, if only because it's very helpful for delivering things like email accounts, or custom VPNs, or custom Wi-Fi networks with 802.1x profiles. There are circumstances where we might like to do that in the future. We're very interested in kind of watching how Apple approaches the user channel on declarative device management. And I think that if we were to implement the user channel, we would likely do it in a declarative status. We've got some things that we want to solve for first. And I think that a lot of those come down to how does a user binding really work in 2023? Because traditionally what we've done is you've had a user account on the device when you installed the JumpCloud agent. We'll come in and take that over. The way in which we do that is a little bit like Attila the Hun takes over the bar. We show up and we smash everything and replace it with our own. Which is not a great experience in some cases. We certainly think that there's a place for a more cooperative future where there is a local user account on a device and then there's an IDP up in the cloud, like a JumpCloud, for example, who maybe have their own authentication layer to go above that. And so where we care a lot less about the local password because it's really only ever used to, you know, unlock the Touch ID sensor. Right? Like we all know, I mean, I dread the days when I have to restart my machine entirely because that means I have to type my password like some kind of animal instead of using my fingerprint and this very fancy Touch ID keyboard that I bought. Biometric authentication is a much more trustworthy way of handling authentication as opposed to a credential which I might get phished or a password that I might write down on a Post-it note and leave on the underside of my keyboard. I'm not saying I do that. I'm saying I know a lot of people that do. And so, you know, we think about those kind of, authentication mechanisms to handle these kind of things in the future. And there's a lot more of an interesting future here. Not to mention, you know, we look at our colleagues at, Microsoft and, you know, they're obviously focused on and Apple for that matter, with passkeys are focused on a passwordless future where it's all, you know, entangled certificates built in hardware secure enclaves or TPMs and biometric access to those things. That's a future I want to live in, as opposed to one
Here,
where
here.
we squash passwords.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
that's
Well,
what
and
we're
which is
focused
why
on.
we kind of brought up, passkeys early on, as that's a great example of, some of the newer, flows coming out that can be very, very user friendly. Unfortunately, passkeys are not overly management friendly, and don't work with a lot of the password managers, right? Which is some of the other
Right.
bigger
Yet.
frustrations.
Yes.
Yeah, we can put money on whether that's going to work in Safari or not.
Yeah.
What LastPass is doing in Chrome, which is their kind of only option. So I think LastPass has some public betas on this right now, which is cool. It's great to see people doing that. Google's actually announced public support for being able to give password managers, I think, deeper hooks into either Chrome or your Android key store, which is where you actually use this. In Chrome itself, they've got an extension that wraps some of the JavaScript, some of the browser APIs that are being used to generate and use passkeys. And there's goods and bads to that. The good is that you get password manager support with them, I guess. And if you really like LastPass and some of those other things, they work. It's fantastic. The bad is, Apple has explicitly prevented you from doing that in Safari. And it's one of the reasons why I don't think that same flows are going to work very easily or quickly in Apple products or Apple branded browsers. And there's good reasons for that, right? Because if a Chrome extension can take over a very intimate, secure process of getting your passkey, suddenly passkeys are maybe not as secure or as protected as you would have thought. And so just like, Apple's put a lot of protections around accidentally installing a profile, right? Because that was malware for a while, that you would be tricked into double clicking a profile, some cases even enrolling in MDM without even knowing it. And then suddenly, then your machine would not be your own anymore, right? And I think Apple's very, very concerned about malware, especially looking at some of these Chrome extensions. I mean, when you go to LastPass, you've got to give it access to pretty much everything you view and see in Chrome. And part of that is because it's putting in passwords for all of your pages. That's fantastic and good stuff. But that's an awful lot of exposure you've given one particular piece of code to everything that you're dealing with on the internet. And especially with some of the recent breaches that have happened, now you want to make sure that, hey, wait a minute, maybe I should think a little bit more about this. And that's not to say anything about LastPass. If you like using them, that's fantastic. All the better for you. But just more the bigger questions around how some of these pieces fit together.
It's great. It's a new world.
Absolutely.
New world. So we've got a couple of questions here related to Apple Business Manager. You want them all at once or individually?
One at a time.
All right. Is there any way to enroll a device in ABM using Configurator without erasing all the contents and settings? Guessing not, but it'd be nice.
I guess it depends on if the device is managed in any way, shape, or form by an existing MDM. Because here's my thought process. There is a special file in a special directory, and it's the .apple setup done file, right? And when that file exists, it proceeds to the login window like normal. When that file does not exist, and I think it's /var/db/ .apple setup done. If that file does not exist, in some cases, it will go through the setup assistant again. And my guess is it might respond to an iOS configurator Bluetooth pulse at that point if the device is not managed by another MDM already. I don't even know if that check exists. I'm surmising that it might. Obviously, what we're about to discuss is not what Apple says is a supported way to do this. This is like a dirty backroom hack that maybe you don't want to do if you really care about this device. It is possible at that point to maybe enroll the device using Apple iOS configurator into Apple Business Manager. Won't do the MDM step for you yet because the device won't have an assigned MDM. However, if you were doing that to a device that was running JumpCloud and had the JumpCloud agent on it, it's possible that you could run a profiles command on the device to result in the installation of the MDM profile at that point. So profiles renew dash type enrollment may work in that circumstance, and you might get a non-removable provisional MDM profile at that time. And so my guess is that could work, but I'm not sure. One, Apple will support that in any way, shape, or form. Two, neither will we. Three, there may be, that's one of those like, hey, if you break it, you own it, and kind of situations.
Void the
You
warranty.
really want to be safe, concerned about that. Obviously, doing this on the next wipe is what generally makes sense in my eyes, as opposed to doing it on a fleet of machines out in the wild.
Cool. So is there any reason that devices would need to be added to Apple Business Manager if they're already added to a management solution with MDM, such as JumpCloud at gJanth? Is there any reason it needs to be in ABM?
Yeah, there's two big reasons. One is non-removable MDM profiles. Any MDM profile that is manually installed on the device, not through automated device enrollment, can be removed by any admin user. Period. Full stop. That is the reality of the place here. So if you want tamper-proof Apple IDs, they need to be installed during automated device enrollment, and they can only be installed during automated device enrollment by an Apple Business Manager connected MDM. So that's your reason right there. That's the full reason right there. The second reason is in the event of misappropriation, shall we say. The best example that I have here is that I used to work with a company who sent laptops to people. The laptop never made it to the office. The box did, but the box was empty when it got there. Like someone had slit open the box, taken the laptop out of it, sealed the box back up, and dropped off the box at the front door. The laptop was gone forever. That laptop was not terribly useful in that circumstance because the thief was stupid and connected it to his home Wi-Fi. And so as a result, was getting the prompt that said, you must join this MDM and you have to provide a user and a password to do it. And so as a result, they had a very fancy brick. And so that's what you want in that circumstance. You want a machine that's not really useful, that must always enroll in Apple MDM at that point. So that is why you really want a machine in Apple Business Manager. It's a theft prevention system, theft deterrent, shall we say, not
right.
Prevention, deterrent.
Right. So is it possible, switching gears a little bit, is it possible for JumpCloud to report on what Apple IDs are being used on managed devices?
That's a great question. And my answer right now is I don't believe so currently. We do not currently report on that. So, I think that there is, I would definitely welcome a feature request and we can look at that feasibility. But to my knowledge right now, there's no way to know over the MDM protocol what the Apple ID is that's signed in on the device. That's not information that's transmitted as part of the device info. So on mobile devices, we probably won't ever know. On Apple devices, the Macs that are out there, I'm not aware of a great way to get that out of the systems that we have today. I don't believe that that's available to us out of OS Query. I'm not aware of an Apple script or a command line routine that would give us that value today. So definitely interested in trying to figure that out in the future, though, because that's great information that customers should be able to find out. Sometimes it's ask the user. That's not as satisfying, and it may open you up to uncomfortable HR conversations.
Cool. Thanks, Todd. So we're close on time here, and apparently we've got a bunch more questions.
We should do this again.
I think we should do this again. Would you guys like to make some final comments? Things that we didn't talk about that you really want to make sure that, get out there today?
I would say, there was a great report released recently by a group called Creative Strategies that was looking at how Apple devices are fitting in at Cisco because they have a really aggressive Apple employee choice program. And so for those organizations that are Apple curious, or those organizations that want to, explain why certain things are the way that they are, I think that there are a lot of really great pieces of information that are there. Creative Strategies made that link available, and I'm going to try and find that between now and the end of the webinar. I'll certainly distribute that out over my Mastodon after the fact. But there are a lot of good reasons. So I am tbridge at theinternet.social. And so if you search for @tbridge at theinternet.social, that is a great way to find me on the Mastodons.
Joel, you have some final imparting of wisdom?
I have a Mastodon account, but I'm not entirely certain what it is. It's on Tim's Two Canoes Mastodon server. So if you find Tom, I think Tom's federated with me.
At backtroll at twocanoes.com.
That could be it. All right. So Tom knows where I am. And I've actually posted there a lot more than I have on the Bird site in any sort of recent memory. WWDC is almost here again.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Holy guacamole!
I mean, that's
goodness.
exactly right. We're halfway between the release of macOS Ventura and WWDC. So I hope you got used to Ventura, because in 90 days it's not going to be the new hotness anymore.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, Ventura should be in the rear view mirror, right? I mean, it's almost February, right? We're going to squint a little bit and say it's a few days left of January. And then you're looking at 4 months and it's WWDC time. Come up to Vancouver at Mac DevOps YVR, hoping to get out there this year, and say hi to Matt and crew. And yeah, we get to see what kind of more new fun for Software Update is going forward. So yeah, keep those deferrals hot.
Nice. All right. We will talk about doing this again, because I feel like folks really enjoyed this, and you guys were terrific. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's fun to do these things. We should, like I said, if we got so many people asking questions, we should come back to this again. Look, my followers on Mastodon are already blowing up. I had one person join.
Awesome.
Thank you, Steve.
Blowing
there's a connection. It could just be random.
All right. I guess we should throw the link for our 10 user demo license to JumpCloud in the chat, and come visit us, come try us.
Yeah, if you're curious about managing, cross-platform devices and identities together in one place, you should come on out to jumpcloud.com. You can sign up for a free trial. It's free forever, 10 users, 10 devices. So go nuts. And you can sign up with a Google account, so that if you've got like a company Google Workspace account, you can sign up for a tenant directly out of that. You get the whole admin experience. You don't have to fill out a bunch of passwords. It's all done through OpenID Connect on the back end. So super easy way to set up your own account just to tinker with and play with. It's a great way to get exposure to the platform. We're a full-featured MDM for macOS and iOS today. We are a Windows MDM, hopefully sometime this half, and then with Android EMM as well. Not to mention, you can manage your Linux devices. You can manage Windows devices currently using GPOs, and co-manage devices that are enrolled in Active Directory or Azure Active Directory today. So go give it a look. Yep.
And questions, comments, discussions can all be had over here in the community. We have a fabulous community run by some amazing people. I don't run it. We don't run it. But it's run by some great people. And we'd love to have your input. Come join us over there. And that's our show, guys. That's all we got. Thanks so much.
Thanks for coming out today, everybody.
Please subscribe and check out more content from us.